Former kickboxer and online misogynist Andrew Tate is currently in custody in Romania while the authorities investigate rape and human trafficking allegations against him and his brother Tristan. And it's now emerged that 3 women in Britain reported him to the police for sexual or physical assault almost a decade ago, leading to his arrest in 2015. Now, despite the police carrying out an investigation into the allegations, the Crown Prosecution Service declined to prosecute. In telling this story, we're going to go into some of the details of what happened. It was broken by Vice News, and some of the details are disturbing, including graphic descriptions of sexual assault. Now, if you don't know who Andrew Tate is, this clip will give you some idea.
Women, let's cut to the chase here. Women should clean up. Not only should women should clean up unprompted. And I'm going to tell you why. It's very, very simple. We live in a world where things need to be fair, 50-50, gender equality, blah, blah. I pay for things unprompted. You don't have to ask me to pay for shit. If we go for dinner, I'll get my wallet out, pay at the end. Don't even check the price of the bill. My card always works. Just bang, ouch, pay, whatever, no problem. Unprompted, if you're with me, your life is effectively free. Everywhere you eat, everywhere you go, where you sleep, you ain't paying for shit. You ain't getting in my car and I'm asking you for gas money. No, I pay for everything, instantly, as a man should. So when you walk into a house and you see mess, why is your lazy ass not doing the right thing and start picking and cleaning shit up? If you're sitting there going, that's sexist. Well, it's sexist for me to fucking pay for everything, isn't it, you fucking bimbo?
So that kind of really toxic content has earned Tate millions of followers across various social media platforms and made him the most Googled search term in July 2022, beating both Trump and COVID-19. Now, in 2013, Amelia, a pseudonym, reportedly began a romantic relationship with Tate. She says that Tate raped her the first time she went to his flat after they'd been seeing each other for a few weeks. Now, Vice News reports this. She said the pair were kissing on Tate's bed when he began trying to take off her clothes. She had previously told him, she said, that she didn't want to have sex. He stopped, reassured her that nothing was going to happen, and they continued kissing. After a while, she said, he suddenly stopped and laid back on the bed. I got up and looked at him and went, what's wrong, she said. This guy literally laid there and went, I'm just debating whether I should rape you or not. Amelia said she was stunned, unsure if it was some sort of sick joke. She said she put her hand on his chest and said, don't be stupid, what are you talking about? Within an instant, he changed who he was, she said. He wasn't the same Andrew that I knew, that was funny, that would make me laugh. It was like his eyes went and I didn't have a clue who that person was. Suddenly, she said, Tate grabbed her neck and started strangling me, forcing my trousers off me. I was trying to keep them on and he started screaming at me, take the effing trousers off, bitch. The article goes on to say, and as I say, this is graphic. Tate then raped her, Amelia said. As he did, she said, he continued to choke her, saying things like, who do you belong to? Even as she was unable to physically speak due to his hands constricting her throat. He's like, effing say it, bitch. You're not effing saying my name. Say my effing name, otherwise I'll kill you, she said. Now, Amelia later reported the alleged rape to the police and handed over these voice notes that Tate had sent to her.
Am I a bad person? Because the more you didn't like it, the more I enjoyed it. I fucking loved how much you hated it. Turned me on. Why am I like that? Why? I am one of the most dangerous men on this planet. Sometimes you forget exactly how lucky you were to get fucked by me. Would you rather me pin you down and make you do things you didn't like, or would you rather fuck? You didn't like that I was thinking I can do whatever I want to. That's what it is. I'm the smartest person on this fucking planet. Are you seriously so offended I strangled you a little bit? You didn't fucking pass out. Chill the fuck out. Jesus Christ, I thought you were cool. What's wrong with you?
Amelia also gave the police this message from Tate. It says, and I love raping you and watching you let me while still debating if it's a good idea or not. Now, all of that evidence, he was still not prosecuted. So he was investigated by the police, was arrested, but he wasn't prosecuted. Now, there are two other women who have spoken to Vice with allegations against Andrew Tate. They've been given the synonyms Sally and Helen. Now, both worked for Tate's webcam business and in 2015 went to the police with allegations of serious assault. Sally told Vice News that she was strangled by Tate at least 5 times and saw him choke other women on at least 10 occasions, attacking them in sudden outbursts of violence. The attacks allegedly occurred when the women were working for Tate's webcam sex business in Luton, England in 2015. Me and another girl would wake up in the morning with these red, I can only describe them as freckles around our eyes, said Sally. It was from when he choked me so hard that my blood vessels had literally just burst. Meanwhile, Helen was allegedly raped by Tate in a sexual assault that Sally claims to have witnessed. Both women went to Herefordshire police. And Amelia's complaint was eventually added to theirs and investigated together, but the case was bogged down by delays, for which the police later apologised. Then, in 2019, the CPS finally declined to prosecute and Tate moved to Romania.
This is probably 40% of the reason I moved to Romania, because in Eastern Europe, none of this garbage flies. If you're going to go to the police and say he raped me back in 1988, they're going to say we should have done something about it then. If you go to the police and say he raped me yesterday, say, okay, if you got physical evidence, or is there CCTV proof? Where did it happen? Okay, let's go interview him right now. And if it wasn't really rape, I'd say, we went to the club, we got drunk, she agreed to go back to my house, we started having sex, and then we carried on having sex, and then we had sex, and she didn't say anything wrong, and then she texted me afterwards, and I didn't text back, and now she's saying I raped her. The police would be like, okay, she's an idiot, bye. But no, not in the West. In the West, you can tell them that exact story, you're still fucked. You're fucked in the West. When people say, why did you live in Romania? And I explain my 5 reasons. One of them is the Me Too era. They go, oh, well, you're a rapist. I say, no, I'm not a fucking rapist. But I like the idea of being able to just say, to do what I want. I like being free. And if you're a man living in England or Germany or America or any of the Western world right now, you've decided to live in a country where any woman, any ex, any fucking bitch who works at Greg's who you bought a pasty from, at some point in the future can destroy your life. This Me Too era bullshit has not protected women. It's just destroyed the safety of men.
Now, ironically, the Romanian authorities seem to be taking the allegations against Tate much more seriously than the British authorities did. Like Helen and Sally, the case in Romania also involves women that Tate convinced to work in his webcam business. 6 alleged victims have been identified so far. But Tate has never been shy about boasting that he knows how to manipulate women into sex work. As part of his Hustlers University, he even teaches other men how to do it.
You're effectively taking girls, teaching them how to make unlimited money from home, and then making sure they give it all to you. So it's not an easy task. You have to fuck the girls. You cannot sit and do a purely professional business relationship with a female. It doesn't work. And her believing she needs you, and this is extremely important, because at the beginning she will need you, but then she won't need you. But you have to keep that fallacy, keep that dream alive that she can't do this without you, to ensure that she doesn't do it without you. But even more importantly, it makes the girl believe that she can't do it without you. And at the beginning she can. But there'll become a point she can. But you being here, it synergizes this teamwork energy. We're going to do this together. Yeah, you go on the camera. Don't worry. I'll talk to the guys. I'm going to talk to them. We're a team. Tax is also another important element for controlling your woman. You're not going to pay anybody tax because you're getting paid in Bitcoin. So you don't need to pay tax to anybody. But you need to tell your girl that you're paying the tax. Because girls are lazy. And girls are stupid, and girls don't understand how taxes work. So the girl's working with you, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, we've made this much money, but I'm going to pay the tax to make sure we don't get in trouble. She'll sit there and go, okay. Now that allows you to do 2 things. One, it's another control element. If I work with him, my tax is not a problem. If I do it alone, I have to deal with taxes. Taxes are complicated. So control element. Secondly, it allows you to pay her a smaller percentage. So I used to pay my girls 30%. So for every $10,000 they made, I'd give them 3, and I'd keep 7. They thought they were on 50%. And I said that the disparity is because of taxes.
Tate, his brother Tristan, and 2 women were taken into custody by the Romanian police on the 29th of December last year. They're under investigation for human trafficking, organised crime, and rape. Earlier this week, Tate lost his appeal against a court order allowing him to be detained for 30 days while the police carry out their investigations. The Romanian prosecutor in the case told The Guardian this: The women were forced to produce material on a daily basis over extensive hours, and they had a schedule to follow. They were producing pornographic material using different objects while engaging with someone in a different location. They were also doing videos showing different parts of their body. We don't know how much the brothers earned, but the women didn't get any of the money. We know a woman doing well can make 50,000 euros per month. The women who have been arrested were making sure the victims respected the program. Every girl had to have material posted, they had targets, and had to follow the schedule. If not, they were sanctioned. Now, like in Amelia's case, the Romanian case also involves messages sent from Tate to his alleged victims. Some of them were published by a Romanian broadcaster. Tate allegedly sent these to one victim. You have to understand that once you're mine, you'll be mine forever. A woman never leaves her man. I will be the last man in your life. Can you be loving enough to be a wife, to always be by my side wherever I go? Talk to 0 men besides me. Ride or die. You have to move to Romania with me to keep an eye on you. You're mine. Do not forget that and act like it. We will be together soon. Now, Tate denies all allegations. In fact, he seems to believe it's all a conspiracy to crush him, one conducted by the establishment, or what he likes to call the Matrix. So he tweeted this earlier this year. I was made for battle, a warrior of the light. My enemies hoped to attack me with lies. They tried to destroy the family unit. They tried to silence any loud opposition. I refused to leave fellow men in the dark. Someone needs to show them the light. Who better than Tate? Ash, now some of our audience might be asking, why are we talking about this incredibly vile man and the horrific crimes he is alleged to have committed? I mean, the important context here is he is one of the biggest social media influencers in the world, millions of followers, billions of views, and as we're going to talk about in a moment, seems to be quite influential among even children, young men and children. And it's terrifying. It's completely terrifying.
So I think we have to talk about why he's been able to do what it is that he has done. I think the first thing that you have to understand is that in this country, because of cuts to the criminal justice system, because of the way in which rape myths endure amongst police and the Crown Prosecution Service, that to a large extent, rape has effectively become decriminalized because the Crown Prosecution Service is working with far reduced resources, as are the police in terms of their investigative capacities. You have huge backlogs. And what that means is, unless you present yourself as the perfect victim, so a victim who first understands what it is that's happened to them straight away, a victim who has perfectly preserved all physical evidence, a victim who hasn't had any kind of consenting romantic or sexual contact with their alleged abuser, a victim who hasn't been drinking or taking any other mind-altering substances, a victim who doesn't have a criminal record, a victim who has settled migration status, a victim who is able to interact with police from a level of confidence that they'll be believed and not someone who will be themselves suspected. You have to be all of these things in order to have a hope of your case being taken seriously. Now, what we know is that there are all sorts of things which make people, and particularly women, more vulnerable to being targeted by abusers and people who wish to sexually exploit them for financial gain. And the things that make them more vulnerable are very often a lack of economic power. They don't have a high status within the labor market, very often don't have a huge amount in the way of further or higher education. People who often come from family backgrounds where they're estranged from their parents or their siblings. These are all things which make someone incredibly vulnerable to being abused, and also make it harder for them to be taken seriously by the criminal justice system. So that is a structural reason why these women were not taken seriously, why they were effectively abandoned by the Crown Prosecution Service, in spite of the fact that there's compelling evidence, which means that this is a case which should clearly, at the very least, get to trial. Now, of course, Andrew Tate hasn't been convicted of anything yet, and the premise of the criminal justice system, whether it's here or whether it's Romania, is innocent until proven guilty. But I think that what we can say is that there is a very clear connection between the kinds of messages which have apparently been sent in private and the way in which he's talked about women in incredibly disparaging and misogynistic ways in public. Now, when he's talking about women in public, he tends to dress it up as a kind of reciprocity, which is I get to call women bimbos and dumb hoes and stupid bitches and all the rest of it. But the quid pro quo is here I am, a very wealthy man, and I'm going to pay for everything. So there's a kind of complementarity there. Now, of course, that's all horseshit because what we know is that he's been using this kind of lover boy scam to pull women into his web and sexually exploit them on the internet. Anything that he has financially has been made on the backs of these exploited women. But that myth of reciprocity and complementarity is something which feeds a fantasy amongst young men, that they will have status in society, that they will have wealth if only they could sufficiently dominate women. There is a grotesque and horrible parallel in the kind of language which is being used in these messages, which at the very least show an entitlement to women's bodies, a lack of regard for women's consent and their agency, indeed a lack of um, concern for their physical well-being. And I think that that should be really troubling, that if what these women are saying is true and he has physically and sexually assaulted them repeatedly, that he has carried out this pattern of behavior with many women, both here and in Romania. This is somebody who has been hiding in plain sight. And there's something I think really troubling about our culture, that if we see someone saying horrendous things openly, if they create a public persona and a character where they're talking about women as property, where they're talking about circumstances in which violence against women is appropriate, when they're talking about gender relations which are based on the control and the domination of women, that we see that as somehow fiction and they couldn't possibly be conducting themselves badly in their personal lives. Well, look, what we saw with Jimmy Savile was an abuser hiding in plain sight. And it appears that we haven't learned from it, that maybe someone isn't just playing a character. Maybe there is a relationship between the things they're actually doing and the things that they're saying for social media clout.
We've got a number of people in the comments sort of saying, why are you giving this guy airtime? Also people saying how he got his money, very legitimate questions. Now, how he got his money is quite interesting. Well, he gets a lot of it from these cam businesses where it seems that he's, potentially grooming women. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I can't say this. He hasn't been convicted of it yet. But I mean, that's the image which is being depicted. So that makes a lot of money. He also has a channel called Hustlers University. That's where he teaches young men how to hustle, both in terms of money and in terms of how to manipulate women. That costs $50 per month and has 100,000 subscribers. So you do the maths. That's $5 million a month, right? So this guy is really, really raking it in. People also pay. A Vice documentary it was out in America last night. It'll be coming out in the UK soon. There are people who pay $5,000 a pop to go to his sort of university where you learn how to get rich and manipulate women, right? So really the money is pouring in. He's also got a huge following on TikTok. Now, that's where the money comes from. The other reason to talk about him is because of how influential he is with young men and also with children, it seems. So there was an article in The Observer recently which sort of described the extent to which this guy is influential in schools. They report this. Michael Conroy, whose company Men at Work trains school staff on talking to boys about these issues, says algorithms make it possible for someone like Tate to be hugely well known to 14 to 18-year-old boys. Conroy has run sessions in 50 schools on online misogyny. Teachers have raised Tate's influence in every single one. One teacher talked about a lesson on sexual consent in which a boy quoted Tate, saying that if a woman went out alone at night and was attacked, it was her fault. Conroy says teenagers also mentioned Tate as a form of microaggression towards female teachers. In one session, Conroy discussed the sexist meme, "Make me a sandwich," used by some men on social media to belittle women. A female teacher said, "I've got a lad in year 10 who always writes MMAS at the bottom of my homework," he says. She hadn't known what it meant until then, but he was trying to humiliate her. Ash, I can't imagine being a teenage girl right now and how terrifying that must be if you've got people who are, basically preaching. I mean, he is preaching rape culture, right? He's preaching rape culture to millions of kids. And they're in school thinking women are the property of men. Women have to be cooking and cleaning for men. Also, women want to meet a big, dominant, rich man. And there's no point in trying to be nice because all you need to be is powerful and aggressive. And then if you've got female teachers who are being belittled by, in a misogynist way by their students because they're watching this guy. I mean, it feels kind of too big to comprehend. How do you possibly challenge something which seems so malicious and so powerful?
Well, I think the first thing you've got to do is understand why he's able to appeal to people, despite being, I think, just hideously obnoxious and conducting himself like a very stupid person's idea of what a smart person is like. And I think that what he does is that he taps into a very real insecurity about loss of status. Now, I think that there are all kinds of ways in which people have experienced a feeling that society values them less. I think one really obvious way is the position of workers within the labor market. Even if you do everything right, you stay in school and you go to university and you take on all that debt and you enter the labor market, it's really difficult to have the kind of standard of living, which means that you can have a house and maybe raise a family and feel valued and secure in the world. And if you're someone who hasn't done super well at school, if you're someone who hasn't gone through university, you're even worse off within the labor market. The kinds of secure blue collar industrial employment which used to exist no longer exists. So that is a profound way in which people have experienced a loss of status. I think people feel incredibly atomized and lonely and isolated because we have had a war on social spaces in which people can meet each other and interact and feel part of a community. And instead, what we have to replace it is contact with the world which is mediated online. And when I think about the way in which we engage with screens, and I compulsively engage with screens as well, it's like empty calories. You know what I mean? It's like trying to live on, Roundtree's fruit pastels alone. So it's not giving you the real kind of nourishment you need, but at least it's something. And so I think within that kind of context, someone like Andrew Tate comes in and he works on two levels. One is he goes, yes, you have lost status. Yes, you are being ground into the dirt. Yes, you are being treated like a worm. And it's something which can make people feel seen and it can speak to people's experiences and in some ways operate as a validation of those experiences. But then what he does is make you feel even worse about yourself by being like, look at my body. I'm so ripped. Look at all these women who want to have sex with me and throw themselves at me. The reason why they want this with me and not with you is because I'm domineering, because I'm a real man, because I have status that comes from violently reinscribing gender roles. And that is an incredibly persuasive narrative. It's a hideous narrative. It's an ugly narrative. I think it's a violent narrative, but it's one which can be really persuasive. And I think that there is something, and you see this with this like make me a sandwich nonsense, which is something that people say to me online all the time. And I'm like, I'm not going to make you a fucking sandwich. It's not my job. You don't know me. Actually, I don't have any bread in the house. But it's something that people say because it makes them feel like they're being daring and they're being transgressive. Because there are some huge ways in which social norms have changed, because women's legal status has changed, because culture has changed about the cultural status and legal rights of women. And people now feel that because the dominant culture is quite a bit less sexist than it used to be, that there is a kind of liberal conspiracy which is silencing men. And so then the transgressive thing to do is say, make me a sandwich to women and be deliberately and egregiously obnoxious. And again, I think that that's something which can feel addictive and alluring to people. And unless I think you provide something else, you have an explanation for why people feel precarious or isolated or lonely in society. And I think also, unless you model ideas of masculinity where women are treated as equals with freedom and agency, where you don't have an entitlement to women's time, but it is possible for people to feel respected and to value one another. People like Andrew Tate are going to be able to, I think, slip into those kind of mental cracks which are opened up by extreme feelings of insecurity.